On to number 8, discussion and possible action on plan of operation for 5 Diamonds Inc. Location is West 234, South 3555, West Paul Parkway. A little bit of history, as was discussed earlier. This property is still currently zoned R1. It has been rezoned by the town of Waukesha to park, and that is currently sitting in the county's hands. The county has asked us for a plan of operation, and that's what we're here discussing tonight. We are not offering up a liquor license. We are not authorizing liquor sales. We are not changing the hours that are being operated. That would go into effect when and if the county rezones the property. Planner Barczyk, I'll let you take it from there.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As the chairman has mentioned, the rezone plan of operation, land use amendment, and site plan have all been approved by the town of Waukesha. Waukesha County has approved the land use amendment, but the rezone is pending at the county level until we provide them with a site plan and plan of operation. We were ready to do that roughly February, March of this year, and we were asked by the applicant to hold off on sending the site plan and plan of operation for matters unknown at this point. Before you tonight on page 2 of the staff report, page 2 and top of page 3 of the staff report, conditions 1 through 16 were the original conditions approved by the town for the plan of operation. The red line comments, including an additional condition number 17, are comments that are being requested by the petitioner. What he's requesting for a change is hours of operation from 7 a.m. to 10:30 to now 7 a.m. and to 11. Instead of 6 full-time employees, he's requesting 10 full-time employees. With regard to the liquor license not being allowed on the property or available for the property, he is asking for that to be stricken, and condition number 17, which is added, that reflect the sale of fermented malt beverages subject to the petitioner applying for and obtaining a Class B liquor license from the town of Waukesha, and that would allow for beer and wine. The petitioner has asked for the allowance to construct the indoor facility that was originally proposed. He has asked for that to be stricken. He has also asked for the 3 fundraisers per year to be stricken from the original plan. And then next is, we had a condition in there that talked about the maintenance of the grounds from 7:30 Monday through Friday and no later than dusk on the weekdays. That he has asked to be taken out. And very last one is that we had some standard language in there that just talked about the use of the property must at no time be hazardous, harmful, obnoxious, offensive, etc. He has asked for that to be removed. In my review of the application, I have put together in my staff report that I felt the change in hours to go to 11 o'clock and also the increase in employees, I per se didn't have an issue with that. With regard to the change in number 7, which talked about the fundraisers, I thought maybe we could create a new condition that would say the applicant shall be allowed to host special events and fundraisers with prior notification at least 1 week prior to hosting the event to the town of Waukesha clerk's office. The applicant shall be allowed to use a voice amplification apparatus during the special events and fundraisers. So really, he's asking for, before we limited him to 3 fundraisers per year, and during those 3 fundraisers he could do the voice amplification. He asked for that to be stricken. I'm asking, or I'm suggesting to the Plan Commission that we put a condition back in very similar that doesn't necessarily limit the number of fundraisers, but it says that, you know, he at least has to give the town special notice as to when they're happening. With regard to the maintenance, and also the language that was stricken about the hazardous, harmful, obnoxious, offensive, those I was not in support of striking those altogether from the plan of operation. I think that it sets some parameters. As we kind of heard during the citizens' comments, you know, they don't necessarily want to be hearing the mowers and dampers, and I know that they were talking also about amplification, but I thought that at least set some parameters as to how early he can be maintaining the grounds and how late he can. And then with regard to our standard language, I think it just protects the town, that, you know, for whatever reason, it's kind of like our language from our nuisance ordinance, that for any reason, if there's noise, or dust, smoke, odor, et cetera, that it, you know, provides the town a reason to go out and check the property. As far as the last two amendments he asked for with regard to the construction of the indoor facility, and also the request for a potential liquor license, I really feel that those are more town policy decisions, and that it was not something I was comfortable with providing a recommendation in that matter. So with that, I put two conditions together for the Town Plan Commission tonight. First one is that you can approve the changes as the petitioner has provided, or you can provide, or you can approve subject to a combination of what he was asking and what I just provided you. So that would be option one. And then option two was you could just deny his request for an amendment, and we send the original site plan and the original plan of operation that we had approved earlier this year to the county for them to move forward and rezone. So with that, Mr. Chairman, I'll turn it back over to you and the Plan Commission.
Thank you.
Chairman, two brief comments. One is I think we need to clarify, and I think you have, but I just want to say it again. The statement that was made under public comments is my understanding. This plan of operation approval would only go into effect at such time as the rezoning was approved. And that was a policy decision that the petitioner made, that he did not want the other plan of operation, the approved plan of operation, to go to the county, either not, I can't speak for him, but it could be said it would be misleading the county as part of the rezoning, and so he asked, but it would only go into effect if the conditional use goes away. That's your understanding, Mr. Planner?
That is correct.
The other one is a very minor point. I would say that under the liquor licensing, which I agree is a totally policy decision, but I would ask that the planner add the following language: and complying with all conditions imposed on the same. So that the conditions of approval of the liquor license are wrapped into the plan of operation. Because the town board, if they were of a mind to grant the liquor license, and I agree with the chairman, this is not approval of a liquor license tonight. The liquor license has to go to the town board at a separate meeting under separate procedures. But they could place conditions on the liquor license, and if they were of a mind to do so, it's generally the Plan Commission and the town board's proverb to have those conditions be incorporated into the plan of operation. Because that's just so that the two are in sync with each other. So I think it's a very minor change. It shouldn't make any difference, but it's just, it doesn't have to come back to you to include those conditions. You did say wine. Kathy kicked me under the table. Wine is not allowed under a Class B fermented malt beverage license. Certain wine coolers are really beer products, so you see them sold at concession stands that only have beer, but a Class C or a Class B liquor license is different than a Class B fermented malt beverage beer license. So wine cannot be sold under the license that's being requested. Certain wine coolers, you read the back, they say they're beer products, they can be sold, just so there's no confusion.
Thank you. Mr. Cohen, do you want to come on up?
He just said yeah.
I'm sure everybody's got some questions. I'll start off. What is the significance of lengthening the time of play till 11 p.m.? Is that for extra games, or what?
It's not for extra games, it's for injury and weather in particular.
Okay. Are you planning on adding to the schedule, or?
No, our schedules are set. They've been the same since day one. And the times that we have been over, from a time perspective, it was because of either weather or injury.
Okay. You wanna take out the language regarding a additional facility, is that something that you now intend not to ever build, or what is your thoughts there?
Our concern is that if we were to put in that building where it was proposed that we would have parking issues. It's gonna take about 80 stalls out of our parking lot, and I don't think that's something that we can afford.
Planner Barczyk, do you know if that was ever looked at initially when that facility was proposed, that would it have enough parks, or would that become an issue? Or have you not looked at that?
I have not looked at that.
Are you filling your parking lot now?
Pretty close.
Okay. Regarding fundraisers, Planner Barczyk had a proposal that perhaps there'd be a week notice. Would there be any issue with that regarding fundraisers?
Absolutely not.
And what about the language in number 14, which is, in no time would there be hazardous, harmful, obnoxious, offensive, nuisance by reasons of appearance, noise, dust, smoke, odor, or other similar factors? Would you take any particular exception to putting that language back in? And that is a standard condition that you put in?
That is correct, it's part of Attorney Macy's standard language.
I guess the only question I would have is who would be the judge of that?
We would,
Uh-huh.
we would.
All gonna come out together?
Not without notice.
Yeah.
Planner Barczyk, who enforces that?
Well, it would be the town, it would follow the standard procedures. We would wait for a written complaint from a resident if they felt that there was something being done on the property that was not in compliant with his conditions of approval. And either Martin or myself would go out and do an inspection and then bring a determination back to Planning Commission and Board.
So things like if the parking lot's not paved and there was excessive dust, if there was loud music being played, if it was operating till midnight.
Correct.
Okay. Questions? Mr. Miller?
Who did the redlining? Is that somebody, your attorney or you?
I didn't do the redlining, unless, I don't know how, I didn't quite understand that
As
myself.
part of the application that I got, someone had taken the original, I thought it was you, who took the original plan of operation and had struck it out and had made comments. So that's what I based that on.
Okay,
Have
so,
you seen this?
it was emailed to me.
So do you concur with the redlining, other than the questions they were posed?
I believe so, yeah.
Mr. Fisher?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I have two, I guess, comments or questions, and maybe Planner Barczyk or others could jump into it. One is regarding that indoor facility, and that has been discussed on many past occasions. My recollection or understanding or concern of that issue is that it was clearly part of the original vision. There were discussions about that. It was part of the site plan and so forth, but I know a concern that I had about it is I didn't think that the town was I didn't understand the approval of that to put the town in a position to compel that structure to be built at that size in that location. And maybe somebody can speak to that. I mean, I guess I thought that the approval addressed the issue of permissibility, but not compelling them to act. I mean, you have any comment on that? That was my hang up on that. In the past, we talked about that being in the plan of operation. The property owner was not compelled to do that. I didn't think that that was appropriate if that was the intention.
You are very correct. In original, when you had first seen from me the plan of operation, which town staff took a lot of time looking at the Plan Commission meeting minutes, the board meeting minutes, the former CU. Originally, the language said that the applicant must construct the indoor facility per the plan set attached in Exhibit A. The Plan Commission and the board had directed me to change the language saying that the applicant is allowed to construct the indoor facility. So yes, the board did make a decision that they didn't feel the applicant had to build it, so we changed the language to say that he was allowed to build it if he so choose to do.
Can I address one other question?
Please.
And that would be, I have a little bit of concern, or like a bit of discussion about the issue of hours in which it's permissible to do maintenance, because we have, I think, kind of stumbled across that in the past, getting perhaps even the definition of maintenance. I mean, I know one of the issues, and maybe Mr. Kelnick can address that, but you've got a piece of the equipment, at least that I've seen in the past, in operation to drag infields after games and so forth. My understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, that there was reason to believe that it was appropriate to do that after games were completed, so if you got rain overnight or whether or not those were in, I guess I'll call it groomed condition before the evening was over. I witnessed that many times as basically not any kind of a noise generator or whatever, but I know we stumbled over whether or not that type of thing constituted maintenance. So do we have, Planner Barczyk, I mean, do we have, the applicant can speak to that, but I mean, do we have an understanding or definition, or is there any way to put some meat on the bones or some definition as to what constitutes maintenance, so that that's not something about which people are going to continue to have differences of opinion?
I think we do need to clarify it was a condition that was carried over from the conditional use. But in my research, I did not necessarily find out specifically what maintaining the grounds entailed. So I think it would be nice to get clarification from the applicant.
I mean, maybe just to continue the discussion a bit, I mean, certainly, I would think the primary issue or concern attendant to that is noise generation. I know there are perhaps a bit of concern about whether that generated some dust or whatever when they dragged it. I mean, I personally didn't see that as something that was impactful upon anybody who would be a adjacent neighbor or whatever. So I guess I think we need to think a little bit more about that. If the issue is noise generation from maintenance, from lawnmowers, weed whippers, chainsaws, you name it, I mean, machinery, equipment, I think that's a legitimate issue, but I think we need to kind of focus on that.
Can you provide clarification?
Well, we have a zero turning lawnmower that's, obviously we would never use after dark. You wouldn't use a weed whacker after dark. The equipment that would be used after dark would be the grooming machine, and then a gas-powered, it's a John Deere Gator. It's a very quiet machine, but what it's used for is hauling bags of garbage out to the dumpster. And that's pretty much the extent of it.
Would you be opposed to limiting the hours of those operations?
Which ones?
Well, anything that's gonna generate any type of noise, whether it's a weed whipper, a lawnmower.
Yeah, those two items, obviously, we're not gonna cut grass or weed whip again after dark, but it's important that we get the garbage out, and if we have the ability to do it, if there's one or two games going on and it's 10 o'clock and people are standing around, that's kind of when we take out the garbage, and it's that, or else we've got to start earlier to do cleanup garbage and take bags out before an 8 o'clock game. So I'm not opposed to not having a weed whipper and a lawnmower after dusk.
And I've seen what you referred to as the Gator in operation. I mean, it's a practical matter. The amount of noise generated of that would be a fraction of what basically comes off the highway. I mean, I think that's an
I would say that we get a quarter of what your average four-wheeler is. It's very quiet. So. And it only goes 12 miles an hour or something, so.
So nobody wants wants to broach, nobody else wants to broach the subject of alcohol, I will. Where do you intend on selling beer or whatever liquor beverages?
You would be out of our concession stand. We have two windows, one that faces north and one that faces south. The one that faces south, very rarely do we even use it, even based on how many people are there. We kind of facilitate what we have now out of one side. So it would be out of concession.
Will the same people that are serving alcohol be serving popcorn or peanuts to a underage individual?
Well, we would have a designated person serving, if that's the direction we go.
Would you envision a golf cart driving around the facility selling beer, or is it
No.
gonna be in the concession
In the,
stand?
yeah.
Out
in the
of
concession.
a single window?
Correct.
My question is this supposed to be proposed while Little League teams are being played, or Little League games, or are you proposing to have adult leagues play there?
Little League right now.
And you still have a high school one there, right?
Correct, which we know we can't serve the nights of high school games. So, it would obviously not be served when any high school is being there, and in particular, probably on weekends is when it would be.
And why not during high school games?
It's not permitted by the WIAA.
What's changed from, the initial thing here about the alcohol? I mean, you're pretty adamant, that we're not gonna ever do that. What all of a sudden has done 180 on that? Why?
I think it's the request more than anything. Especially on weekends, we have teams from all over the country that come in. It's a vacation experience for the parents. It's a playing experience for the kids. And quite frankly, some of the times they could have 3 games within a day. We serve terrific food, and the families stick around.
I guess I had two boys that we spent 6 years doing the exact same thing, select baseball, and I was a coach, and we traveled all over the state. And I don't ever remember alcohol being served at any of those events.
No.
I'm just kind of questioning why this is all of a sudden gonna be different here.
Well, I know in today's days, it's served, I don't wanna say everywhere, but, I mean, we travel the country as well. I know New Berlin has a couple tournaments every year at the VFW, they sell there. I believe the Rock sells, which is a big complex down in Franklin. Jamie, you may know, I don't know what they all sell, but I've been told that they do serve beer. But it's our experience, again, traveling the country with this kind of select ball, that it's the norm.
I have a question with the alcohol also for beverages. I can maybe foresee an issue, maybe you have a way to not have it happen, but let's say you have a WA game at a certain period of time. Let's say you serve beer prior to that. How do you clear it out? I mean, how are you gonna stop that from not overlapping the WIA games and stuff like that?
Simple. We lease to Catholic Memorial, the boys and the girls. We get their schedule in February for the coming summer. Catholic Memorial, now the boys are gonna be going to spring ball. So more or less their season is gonna end even before we open up for Little League. So, and the girls finish up in June. So we'll have 2 tournaments, 3 tournaments maybe before the girls start. Before the girls end and then go to travel ball. But the schedules come out so far in advance that it's pretty easy to justify what days can and can't be based on WIA rules.
So you're saying if they have a WA game, a certain day that you won't serve alcohol that particular the whole day?
The whole day, yeah. It's never on a weekend. Typically they play Monday through Thursday. And then our tournaments, the weekends are booked like in October for next year. So CMH also knows what days they can't play as well because of our tournaments.
I have another one, I'll bring another point if I could. That goes for everybody. The paving that's on there, do we have a time frame that maybe 5 diamonds?
We do.
Do you know when that's?
I believe it's between 2016 and 18, I believe.
It sounds right, and I think it may or may not have coincided with the indoor facility, but the town does have on record a development schedule that outlined those. I don't have it in front of me, but I do recall in going through my research that there was a development schedule when he had certain things completed by.
I just know that was quite a bit of a nuisance last year and kind of a headache to deal with, and just kind of curious where that was. One more for you, application, all diamonds or just certain diamonds?
At this present time, we have no wiring for application anywhere.
Okay, your plan is?
I don't have a plan.
Okay.
So, if it's done with, I don't even know what they're called when you squeeze the microphone, what is it?
Bullhorn.
Bullhorn.
Megaphone.
We actually have 2 of those on site, and what they're for is we're storm weather certified through the National Association of Weather. So we have to have them on site. I would anticipate something similar to that. It isn't like the fundraisers are lining up at this particular time. But I would assume they would use something similar to that or some freestanding unit like this with a speaker.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Commissioner Flanagan had dropped off a letter that I almost forgot to read, and he wanted to be here this evening, but he's got some family issues, and the letter reads, "I apologize for not being able to attend this meeting. Pressing family issues have come up that I cannot miss. There is an issue on the agenda that I am concerned about. The Five Diamonds Ballpark has applied for permission to sell beer during the operating hours. My concern is that the town board should not be involved in the use as long as it is a legal use for any business. I think we made a serious mistake in dictating the hours of operation to the Walgreens drug store application. The result of this action was to lose a valuable service asset for our citizens and tax revenue for our township. If there are any issues that will arise from allowing the Five Diamonds to sell beer, there are town ordinances that can be used to permit and/or prohibit when any problems may arise after the fact." And that's respectfully submitted, Robert Flanagan, Plan Commissioner.
Mr. Chairman, if I could ask a question, Mr. Kelnick, your request is to include in the operation the ability to sell fermented malt beverages from the concession stand. You've described that to us. I'm going to back up a minute. The conditional use permit, which was granted to you, which a number of people have spoken to, is yet in place, had basically the prohibition of alcohol, tobacco, or drugs on the entire premises, and I know we had a number of back and forth discussions. You got multiple directions as to where to place signage and that type of thing. What about outside of the baseball complex, if you will, parking lot areas, tailgating, that type of thing, or whatever? I mean, this request of yours does not address that activity in any way or anything. Do you have any comments about that?
At this point, we try to avoid any kind of tailgating, because 9 times out of 10, they don't pick up their mess. So, we do our best to make a tour every 45 minutes to an hour in the parking lot, and any kind of activity like that, we tell them to quit, pick up, and head in. So,
I guess a follow-up, would it be your intention, I guess, or what would your intention be? Would you have, regardless of what we do with the issue of the request to sell the fermented malt beverage, beverages, leave that aside for a minute. What's your intention going forward with the parking lot areas and so forth? Would you intend to post signage to not allow people to bring alcohol into there to consume it? Are you gonna be policing that? Are you allowed to bring it into the complex?
No, we don't allow any carry-ins. We have different, water coolers that are shown on our website for teens and kids to bring in. Obviously, we've had some pretty rough summers. But outside of water and the traditional parent, you know, with a Gatorade or two in their pocket, there is no carry-ins into the park. So we monitor the parking lot as well.
Just to add on to that, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Add on to Brian's comment, never thought of that tailgating. Is there any signage, would there be any signage? I think that'd be more appropriate to have signage, is there signage there for that right now?
There's signages at the entrance, you know, so when everybody's coming into the game. Typically, a tailgating scenario is done when you have a 10 a.m. game and then they play at 4. So what they do is, we do have quite a bit of green space around the parking lot. So they'll go out and they'll put up a tent and they'll sit there. I don't necessarily call that tailgating, but I can probably count on one hand how many people we had to go out and tell them to kill the grill. So, I think they just go out there and relax more than anything. So if signage is an issue to put up no tailgating, I definitely don't have a problem with that.
Thank you.
No.
Yeah.
Correct, but if the rezoning is approved, this application, plan of operation, would go with that only. If the rezoning is not approved, this would not go with.
That's correct.
Okay, then this question is for Jamie. Is the sale of alcoholic beverages permitted in that zoning area, in that zoning district? Is that a permitted use?
In the
P1, it's the only P1 we have.
I don't know if the actual zoning district itself dictates, or any of our zoning districts dictate if alcohol can or cannot be sold, or can be used.
They do address though if it can be sold.
I don't believe so.
Well, approval of this doesn't allow alcohol to be served there, we still have to apply for a license to the town.
Oh, absolutely.
Besides this, and this doesn't give them the right to sell alcohol.
No. No, they need to apply for a liquor license and go through the, pay all the fees and come back to the town board. I believe there's a public hearing, am I correct on that?
Public notice.
Okay.
So can number 17 just be stricken? I mean, it almost seems irrelevant at this moment.
Well, but we're allowing as part of the approval, the opportunity for him to at least apply for it. And that was a recommendation from the town attorney.
It was to get it out in the open, in the air, to make sure that there was nothing surreptitious being done, that would be a potential avenue that they would pursue in the future.
So the same, it sounded like there was a discrepancy between public notice and public hearing. The same people that were voicing tonight will have another chance?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, it comes back before the plan commission and board, or just board?
Just board.
Okay.
Unless Attorney Macy sees anything different, I don't know if he's looking at the zoning code. The use regulations only talks about the use of the property, so you can do archery, band shells, bicycle trails, boating, tennis courts, etc., but it doesn't talk about, doesn't say or not say that you can sell alcohol.
So So then do you determine that that means that it is available if the license is granted in any particular zoning?
Subject to a site plan of operation or conditional use. Most of the uses within our district require one of the two reviews. So I think like we're doing here tonight, under the recommendation of Attorney Macy, is that we're saying that alcohol may be permitted, subject to the applicant applying for and obtaining a liquor license. Just by having it as a condition of the site plan, he could very likely go to the board and the board denies him the right, so therefore he can't sell.
I think we also need to put some limits on the grounds maintenance. I understand that you're not gonna be cutting grass at midnight, but I think we still need to have that in writing. There needs to be some.
Well, can we go to that condition, Mr. Chairman? That's one of my concerns. When I read this earlier today, I had that concern, and now I'm reading it again, and I want to ask the planner what his intent was. Now that I read it in the red line, he can't do anything before 7 a.m. and 11 p.m. Is that correct?
That's the way that the condition was written.
Okay. So, the second one, the second sentence of number 3 may need to be clarified to say that, you know, the egress and cleanup, you know, still has to be done, can't be done before 7 or after 11. I don't want that sentence to be. Everything has to be between 7 and 11. If at 11 o'clock they just finished the game, they leave in the dark because the place is shut down. Everybody's gone at 11 o'clock, according to this condition. That's what it says, and I just want to clarify that that's what it says. And you are saying that that's what you wrote and that's what it says.
These are the conditions that came from the CU, so that's what was approved as part of the CU. It just transferred over to the plan of op. I didn't recreate any conditions or that was what was originally approved in the CU.
Well, I thought it was 10:30 here, that was the original, wasn't it?
You're correct, that's a good point,
This is
but.
the one this is the proposal, 11 against.
But it still doesn't allow, and I made that comment to you before the meeting, that we needed to tighten it up, and now that I'm reading it, I'm not reading that you can do anything after 11 o'clock or 10:30, whatever time you said, or before 7 o'clock. That's what it says.
Is that your understanding also?
Yeah,
Good, that's great, as long as everybody understands, and you may wanna just modify, you know. The one about the no field lights, and I still, and I don't know how your lights work, and I apologize. Oftentimes, the lights have to be on in the field to see the parking lot anyway, so this really does allow the lights to be on until 11 o'clock if ever anybody's on the ground, because they have to be able to see the lead. Do you have a different lighting system for the parking lot than you do for the fields? Okay.
and I think some of the board members can attest when the games are done, that set of lights is shut off.
Except for you were asked for the right, and they can grant the right to, you know, rake the field, or, you know, drag the field.
Right.
Or set the field up for the next day, and you can leave the lights on for that purpose.
Well, even if there's a game going on the field next to it, you can still, typically once that game's done and the people are away, regardless of what the time is, there is enough light in the area by the field next to it for us to groom a field. I mean, roughly takes 10-15 minutes to groom a field.
How many games do you play where you'd be utilizing lights? Is it primarily a weekend thing? Is it a weeknight thing? When does that happen? Okay. And how many times in a given year does that happen?
Roughly start the first week of June and our regular season ends the second week of July. First 2 years, we had fall ball, which was just Saturdays and Sundays, but there was no Sunday lights. This year, I think we're gonna let the park sit and not have fall ball, just to improve grass and stuff, conditions inside the park. But if you're asking how many times I turn the lights on,
Yes.
I mean, realistically, you can say every day, except Sunday.
Mr. Chairman, I want one other clarification, I just made a couple of notes. We talked about high school leagues. I don't think we mean high school leagues, we mean those leagues that are run by the schools. You can have high school leagues and, right, I mean, there are other things, you have youth leagues and you have other things. The only one that the alcohol came into play with that you couldn't have it was the certain type of high school sanctioned leagues.
WIAA, correct.
You were all talking generically high school leagues, and I don't want anyone to leave here thinking that whenever there's a high school league, he shuts down because that's not what he intended and that's not what it said. You can interpret it that way. If he has a high school league run by the rec department or run by themselves, that's not what you were speaking of.
Correct.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that's clear, so
Thank you.
my job is to make sure that whatever they approve is clear.
Thank you.
It's their policy decision what to approve.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
If I could just address two other things. Just one is a point of view with regard to the provision about harmful and hazardous materials and activities and all that type of thing that I think Planner Barczyk recommends don't eliminate that. I support that position. I think that language should remain in. And the other one, I guess, for a bit of discussion, I have a bit of concern about the fundraiser discussion, leaving aside the issue of quantity or whatever, the provision to provide 1 week prior notice to the town. I've got a little bit of concern about that. I mean, that sounds feel good. Why would anybody object to that? Seems to make some sense, but and then I think about it as a practical matter. Let's assume that expectations requirement there is you fulfill that. That's an email, that's a phone call or whatever to the town clerk or somebody. What are they to do about it? I mean, we're not going to hold a meeting to approve or deny that or whatever. I mean, are they supposed to notify people? I mean, as a practical matter, what does that accomplish? I mean, it sounds great, but what does that get done?
I can answer that, because I have many communities that do require, and each of the lists in the communities is different. Believe it or not, I have communities that if Pick and Save wants to have a brat fry, they have 10 things they have to notify the clerk about that brat fry so that they can provide the proper traffic and control and things like that. One of the thoughts is I believe it's a year a week, recommending, I've seen longer, I've seen shorter, is theoretically, upon notice, they let the fire and police department know. Okay, so that the police can, be aware that if they get a call that there's a traffic jam or a backup or something, they at least knew there was a special event going on. And some of them, that's the way they write it in much greater detail, the purpose for the same and what is supposed to occur. Town of Mukwonago, whenever they approve an amplification permit, it's always subject to meeting with the police chief and the fire chief and satisfying the conditions that these people are necessary as part of that approval. I'm not suggesting you do that, I don't have a problem with what's written, but just to explain to you what oftentimes is done. The week is so, if he gets a call and somebody says, we've decided we want to have a birthday party and have 50 or 60 people over, and can we come over and play ball? Many communities don't want that kind of spontaneity. These are supposed to be organized. And as I said, I can show you the list for the brat fry, it's unbelievable. I mean, they want to know the guesstimated number of people, how many parking spaces are you going to take up, what is the duration of time, things like that. So, I'm not recommending you do that, but I'm trying to explain to you what's the purpose for the notice.
Yeah, that's helpful, and I appreciate it very, very much, and that certainly is something maybe worthy of it. All I was trying to, I guess, get the thought through is that we're not being expected to post public notices or put it on the town website or send out notification to neighbors or hold a special town meeting or whatever. I mean, it makes some sense to me that if we've got emergency response personnel that they would be aware that makes a lot of sense, but I just want to make sure that we don't have an expectation of something more.
We need some guidance, and I don't know if we could turn it back to the planner and have him walk through each of his issues and get some feedback before we write the motion. I don't know how you want to do it, but we gotta decide which ones are in and which ones are out, and mainly we can do that by the plan commission, nodding their head or commenting as he walks through his recommendation. If we're of a mind to go there, Mr. Chairman, are we ready to go there?
Well, from my perspective, I think we need to include number 14 in its entirety. I think there need to be some limits on the maintenance. We do have limits in number 3, that nothing happens before 7 AM and nothing happens after 11 PM. I don't know, are we comfortable with that limitation? Or does it need to be more strict?
Does that mean they can't pick up a broom and sweep the inside of the concession stand, or anytime it means 11 o'clock, everybody's out of that place, there's not a car in the parking lot?
The hours of operation, well, the cars in the parking lot, people are gonna be leaving. Let's say the game ends at whatever time, 10:50. People are gonna be taking some time to get to their cars, but the hours of operation of the ballpark end at 11 o'clock according to this.
No, I'm gonna tell you that that's not the way it's written. It's written that it's shut down, they're gone, just like a tavern,
Right.
you know, it's gone.
Assume that there's a gate at the front entrance. 7 o'clock they open
I mean,
it up,
that's the way it's
11
written, that's
o'clock
why I
they
asked
close
the question, chief.
And so that means like the cleaning person in the concession stand, everybody's gone, they can't do anything.
Yes.
That's what it says.
I think
But
that's
that's
the way
what,
they're written, so I
but
don't
that's
agree.
what's been approved, I guess, from day one.
Then we need to look at things, I don't agree with that. I mean, if,
What's your
well,
recommendation?
somebody cleaning the building and stuff like that isn't affecting anybody, and sometimes it's the only time you can do it is after everybody's gone. I mean,
Well,
that's-
unless the operation ends at 10 and then you got an hour to clean up. I don't know what their schedule is, you know.
I'll be honest, I'm still in favor of 10:30 at the latest they can be there. I mean, but if 10:30 is the time that the ball games are over and people are leaving, I don't want to restrict the janitor from cleaning the building at 10:30, that's not me.
I tend to agree with Dan on that. We've gone around this, they already, I think originally it was like 9:30 was the original hours, and we moved it to 10 because complained about not being able to get games in and stuff. Then it went to 10:30. Now we're getting to 11. I mean, I agree with Dan, I think it should stay at 10:30 because the neighbors have some rights around their, to peace and quiet and lighting off and things like that by 10:30, and I think that's kind of the limit. I played ball and I've been involved in ball and stuff for a long time, and I just never cleaned after 11 o'clock, and I just don't understand why 10:30 wouldn't work.
Ask a question of Dan. Are you thinking about, and leaving aside for a minute, the 10:30 or the 11 type thing, is what you're thinking more of permitting employee or employees or something to be there for quiet activity, I mean, not a maintenance thing before?
That's fine, I think if they, like Dan said, if they wanna clean up the building and they're there at 11 o'clock, they're not hurting anybody.
Employees,
Yes.
correct, I agree.
Here's the issue with the 10, you know, very rarely do we go past 10:15. The fact of the matter is, we have anywhere from 50 to as many as 70 teams in from around the Midwest or country. And let's just say at 9:30, they're in the 4th inning of that last game of the night, and we get lightning. That whole, on a Saturday night, Sunday, that first set of games, second set of games, maybe even the third set of games, your 8, 10, and noon games are already set. You know what I'm saying? From the whole day of playing. So now, once lightning hits, you got a 45-minute wait, it's shut down. Everybody either goes to their cars, concession, wherever, okay? So that 45 minutes goes by, now it's 10:30, it was 9:15. There's 3 innings left, now it's gonna push your whole schedule on Sunday back even further. And when you get that, you say you played, I played a lot, it's changed a lot since I played on how this is.
I understand that, Tom, but I guess we've got neighbors around there that, you know, have had some kind of say in this for a long, long time.
Sure.
They've given a lot already, you know, and how far do you want to push them? I mean, we have to have some concessions, and I think they've already given, and I think it's time we stand our ground a little bit here on this too. I think 10:30 is plenty of time to get a game in. And I'm not saying you're gonna have thunder and lightning every weekend.
I think we had it twice last year.
then I guess the next day gets pushed back a couple hours or an hour or whatever it takes. I don't know, let's.
One thing kind of
think about
leads
that,
to.
But I guess that's my thought process.
One thing leads to another, you know, and
Exactly.
again, we could stand here and talk about excuses all day long, but now you have, 6 fields going, 12 teams, and it's all backed up. Now you got teams coming back from the night before. Quite frankly, it could be a parking issue, but it is what it is.
Al?
I'm gonna side with that 10:30 also. I've played too, I think we all did. I know in the past, some experience, I know it's tough being trying to run the place and have everybody on time and on board. And I know in some games, if it's rain or maybe rain in the forecast that day, they limit the games to 1 inning or shorten the game to 45 minutes or instead of an hour. If there's rain in the forecast, they manage that to try to get through that. Not the greatest thing if people are traveling a long distance, I totally understand that. Don't feel like playing 1 inning when I could play 5 innings. But I feel for the town citizens here, they spoke quite frequently here, and they're still here. They don't go away. So I feel for them, so I think 10:30 would be my time frame too. Thank you.
Then I think we would have to amend the plan of operation back to 10:30 if that's what the consensus of the plan commission is gonna be. Are we then comfortable saying that perhaps the operation is done at 10:30, but they can continue to clean up? Do we wanna put that language in there? And I'm trying to get away from micromanaging somebody else's business, and would prefer a blanket statement rather than little nuances that you can do this or you can't do that.
Yeah, I don't wanna get into when there's a guy standing there and everybody's calling the cops because there's a person still on the grounds out, that's totally ridiculous, to go
Agreed.
that direction, But I'd say that, games are done and.
You can't write it that way. That's way too
Lights off?
ambiguous. I ran a record, well, you want all the lights off at 10:30?
No, come on.
No, you
No, no.
cannot write it unambiguous, or you will be back
The
here
field lights
complaining.
are off, the parking lights are on.
Till when?
Parking
You
lights
have,
are
I don't
on.
care what you say, just make it clear.
Till the cars are all gone.
I think the parking
Two,
lights are on,
3 in the morning?
aren't they?
They're on all night.
They're on all night.
Parking
Parking lights are on all night.
Parking lights are on all night?
No, all the time.
They are now?
Yeah.
Tom, is that true?
Yes,
Yeah. 20, thus it's done even in winter, right?
yes.
Yeah. It's basically more security.
And
So-
you've got security lighting around the building, right? Besides that, all the time or not?
We got recessed can lights in the soffit, security cameras.
Right.
Gentlemen, I'll give you all kinds of examples if you want. I'm holding a fundraiser. My last game ends at 10:30, just like you said, and I'm gonna give out all the door prizes from 10:30 to whatever time you tell me I can be there. Is that what you intend? Because you have to let them know. They need to know what the rules are.
No, I don't think that's what we're saying at all. What we're saying is, their event is over at 10:30, but if there has to be employees there to clean up and stuff, they can be there.
No, that's not what the other gentleman said, in all due respect. He said if the people are changing their shoes and they're packing up their gear and stuff, they can be there from 10:30. I'm not putting words in your mouth, but that's what I heard you say, and that's when I interjected to say, make it clear. So when we get complaints, we know if it is a violation or it isn't a violation. That's all I'm saying. What do you intend?
What if, just, couldn't you be as specific as saying ball diamond lights are out at 10:30? Because all the other ancillary lights are gonna be on 24/7, or not dusk to dawn throughout the year anyway. I mean, so they can change their shoes, they can clean the building, because those lights are on anyway. So the ball diamond lights go off at 10:30.
Mr. Chairman?
I think that's the, I'm sorry, go ahead, Ron.
Okay. I think what it needs to be is 10:30, and if that's the hour, I mean, everything is basically shut down. I think people should be out of the parking lot. Those parking lights stay on all the time, that's not an issue. Fuel lights are off, people are off the premises, and I have no problem if there are employees there. We clean up at that time, and you got some can lights on the building right now, but I think public needs to be out, including out of the parking lot. It has to cover that as well. You're not gonna have people out there sticking around for the next hour or that type of thing, doing whatever. That's what I think the definition should be.
Comfortable with that?
I gotta hear what it is, somebody's gonna have to make it crystal clear, and I'm gonna continue to bug you. It doesn't say that, well, I don't care, do you have language for us?
It sounds like the ball diamond lights are off at 10:30. The perimeter lights and the parking lights remain on, and the public has to be removed from the ball diamond. Employees can be there to clean up. Is that-
You
is that
said
clear
the
enough?
diamond, but not the parking. The ball.
I think I think the
lights are
public
off
needs to be out of the parking lot.
It's telling them that they're off the line.
Well, if the game ends at 10:30, they're not gonna be out of the parking lot at 10:30.
If the game ends at 10:15, they'll be out of the parking lot. That's fact, it isn't gonna happen.
But is the parking lot an
Right,
issue?
Sean? Is that correct? Even if the game ended at 10:15, there's no way all those people are gonna be out of the parking lot at 10:30.
Yeah, probably, not all of them.
Well, I think the issue here, and the problem with the neighborhood is the lights, and if they're off at 10:30, I think that pretty much takes care of that problem. I mean, if there's people sitting in the parking lot or leaving at 10:30 at the 11 somewhere in there or whatever, I think that's gonna be, will alleviate the problem of the lights being on.
I think at 10:30, the lights are off, and you close the gates, and you hustle people out of the ballpark. And that's the extent of it. After that, people are gonna get in their cars and
So
they're
I
gonna
don't
go.
think it's dictate that they gotta be out by 10:45, or they gotta be, every car has to be out of the parking lot by 10:45. I don't know if Tom's in position and completes at that height, but
We're getting into
the lights
micromanaging
are
again.
off, and the concession stand closes at the same time, which is part of this, too, is part of the operation. I mean, people aren't gonna stick around for an empty concession stand or a closed concession stand, they're not going.
How
If it takes
is-
them 15 minutes to get out, it needs to be a.
Aside from talking about the employees and how late they can stay after, how is our discussion any different than what we're already saying in condition 3? It says that the plan of operation shall reflect hours from Monday to Sunday from 7 AM to 10:30. No field light poles may be used if the field is not in use for either baseball or softball or for egress and cleanup.
Well, you're saying that if there's a baseball game going on at 11 o'clock, they can still have it on?
No, I'm saying that we're going back to 10:30.
Oh, at 10:30,
Right.
yes, right, okay, I thought you meant.
No, so then all we could do is, or what we could do is then add to condition number 3, saying that this excludes employees or staff from general cleanup of the concession stand or something to that effect.
Let me just tell you, plan of operation means that's when the business is open. If you're going to use that phrase, that's what it means legally in the whole industry.
So you're saying the maintenance is separate?
No, I'm
So
saying,
do
you're
an
gonna have
hours
to
of
say the plan
operation
of
for the
operation,
fall.
the worst case would be plan of operation is 24 hours. And then you narrow down when games can be played, when lights can be on, when cleanup can be occurred. I'm just telling you that that's the way the industry writes it. The public would believe that if it says plan of operation is 7 AM till 10:30 or 10:30 we'll say, because that's your discussion, that means there's nobody there before 7 or after 10:30 unless you write it differently. And again, you can write it any way you want, it's just gotta be clear. And I think that's where the planner is going with it. Now, one thing you keep saying is no field lights may be used if the field is not used for either baseball or softball. I would tell you, you gotta get rid of the egress and cleanup or 10:30. And no lights can be on in the fields after 10:30. If that's what you're saying, and I hear everybody saying it, that's what you should say.